Hey everyone, I'm joined by Patrick again. Today we are building the SGI O2. So we previously built the Indigo2 Extreme.
Yes.
And it was a pretty cool system. It was a $34,000 system, and from the early 90s. This is also from the 90s. This is also from Ian, again from SGI Depot, who sent it along for us to build. And we're going to spend some more time on the software today. So this one, assembly is pretty straightforward. So after we get it assembled, I think we have Blender on here, and then Quake, and a couple of other things we can look at. And we also have a Blender benchmark of this versus an 8600K.
yeah, that's what was in the system at the time.
So yes, it wasn't particularly important to get to make it a like-for-like comparison. So we'll go through that today, starting with the assembly, and of course our thanks again to Ian from SGI Depot for sending this along. Before that, this video is brought to you by the Gigabyte Aorus AD27QD gaming monitor. The AD27QD is a 27-inch 1440p gaming display with 95% of DCI-P3 color saturation for high color accuracy, accompanied by a 1 millisecond response time, 10-bit IPS panel, and display HDR Visa certification. Additional features include fluid adjustment and slide, RGB LEDs for personal flair, and firmware features like cooldown counters, reticles, and adaptive noise reduction. Learn more at the link below. So here's the system. This is the O2. Patrick, do you want to walk us through some of the parts?
Yeah, so we have the power supply here. It's got a bunch of warnings on the bottom about not removing the cover, and we haven't done that, but right. It's also got kind of a cool grounding strip on the bottom there, or something like that.
It's a squishy ground or something like that.
It's a Sony-made power supply. Hard drive that is not original to the system. It would have shipped with a 2 or 4 gigabyte hard drive, but this is a 36.7 gigabyte SCSI drive. Yeah, so a lot more.
And what about the CPU? Is this also an R series CPU?
Yeah, this is an R5000 200 megahertz, and we can't tell who manufactured it this time.
Last time it was Toshiba, for reference.
Yeah.
So CPU is on, I guess, the motherboard, and it's already pasted, you said?
Yeah, this is the heatsink assembly. This is the CPU daughter board, and both of these heatsinks are pasted on, and we don't really want to peel those off. There's no screws or anything underneath.
Right. So the last time, the Indigo2, we have some footage of it we can show where we pulled the heatsink off the CPU, and that actually, it looked very similar to what's in this box. So it wasn't exactly this model, but the Indigo2 had a similar CPU to that under the heatsink. And so other than the CPU daughter board, there's some memory slots. And do we know what type of memory this is?
No, but
we're not 100% sure. So just to be clear here, neither Patrick nor I are experts on SGI. This was sort of before our time of working with computers. So when is this? This is a 90?
This is 96.
96.
The other one was 93.
Okay. So we're not experts. Ian certainly is. Ian sent everything along and has everything documented. But yes, we have, I think, is it 8 sticks this time? 2, 4, 6, 8 sticks of memory. Last time it was 12. And do you know what the capacity is? Yeah,
this is 256 megabytes, which was the maximum when the system launched. They raised that to 1 gigabyte later, but this is max memory spec for the launch of the system.
Okay. And then what about this thing here?
That is AV input. So there's a lot of analog video connections on there, and then on the end there's the O2 cam connector. We don't have an O2 camera, but that's where you would hook that up.
And presumably this interacts with the case or something.
Yeah, I think that's like a locking mechanism.
We do not have the case, so unfortunately we can't show you the case. And then you told me an interesting fact about this too.
Yeah, Ian said this is technically not an AV board. This is just an A board.
Just audio.
Yeah.
Okay.
But SGI ran, I guess the audio-only boards were more popular, and they ran out. And their solution to that was just to sell the AV boards with plastic covers glued over the video inputs.
Okay. So they just cover the video, and then you just take the cover off, and then you have video.
So financially, maybe not the best for them.
Yeah, it worked out well though. They're bankrupt now. So what else? What is this?
That is the front plane. That's what everything connects together with.
I see it comes with tape.
Well, that's my addition.
Okay.
I took some creative liberties. It's dated 96. I think all these parts are dated 96. They're not all from the same system, but they are all from the same time. And the Made in USA stamp is scratched out on both sides and replaced with...
Made in Malaysia, I think.
I think on this side, Made in Malaysia.
And we're not quite sure what the story is behind that, but we did not do that, so don't get mad at us. All right, so let's start assembling it. I guess I'll let you wherever you want to start. Memory, maybe.
Yeah, we can do that. Snap this in.
And then while Patrick's working on that, I have some notes too that you took. So let's see, interesting things for people to know. The R4400, which was in our Indigo2, you say was licensed to IDT, LSI, NEC, Performance Semiconductor, Siemens AG, and Toshiba.
Yes.
So I guess those were the manufacturing sources.
Yes, and ours was made by Toshiba.
Right. And ours was, it was 200 megahertz R4400. That was in 94. And we did some more research on that too. So that, modern CPUs, everyone's talking about 7 nanometer, getting down to 7 or 10 nanometer for Intel. And the R4400 that we used was 300 nanometer process, which actually is smaller than I would have guessed. And it was $2,150 new.
According to Wikipedia. So
$2,150 according to Wikipedia, and that is, we don't think that's adjusted for inflation, but we're not sure, I guess. And then the O2, the one that you're working on now, so daughter board here we have an R5000, right? Mm-hmm. Also made IDT, NEC, NKK. That is a terrible noise that makes. And then let's see, do those go in just straight down at all?
The memory sticks?
Yeah. Or that you going in at angles?
They go in straight down, but you gotta wiggle a little bit, yeah.
Springs are a bit old. So the R3000A 1.2 micrometer process, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was, so 1.2 used for Sony PlayStation, you say? Was that the PS1?
Yeah.
I guess? Okay. And this is all, I guess, all MIPS. Is this all MIPS architecture, all of it, or do you know?
Yeah,
Okay.
but licensed out to other companies for production.
Okay.
And I think you're getting them in a...
Nintendo is next, right?
Yeah.
The R4300i 350 nanometer process used for the N64. And I think that console is probably one of the most recognizable of all time. So the N64 licensed to NEC, referred to as the NEC VR 4300, not virtual reality in this instance.
Not quite.
Yeah, not quite. That would be the Virtual Boy. Still better than the Rift. The R5900 250 nanometer process CPU was used for the PlayStation 2. And then MIPS we did some research on as well. So SGI, I guess, you say they were a customer at first of MIPS?
Yeah.
And MIPS did the architecture for these.
Yeah, so they were a customer, and then they, I guess, wanted to protect their investment in the company and eventually bought MIPS.
Just bought the company.
Yeah.
And so SGI acquired MIPS in 92 for $333 million. And there's a new IPO in 98. And then eventually it became a separate company again in 2000 when SGI started to, or wanted to use Intel.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Ian mentioned a few times is that SGI jumped the gun on announcing that they wanted to move to Intel parts, and then they took a really long time to do that. But
Okay.
I'm guessing they already damaged their relationship with
MIPS.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. So a fabless company, or is this MIPS? MIPS was a fabless company, you're saying?
Yeah, they continue to be, yeah.
Continues to be a fabless design company. AMD is another example of a fabless company. NVIDIA, another fabless company. Okay, so the O2 specifically, though, this system, now that you're getting it sort of assembled, and this right here, we'll show this to camera too. That's just a connector. So I think, like the last one, this is all cableless. Right? It's just all connectors.
There's theoretically a cable for the optical drive again, but we don't have an optical drive for this either.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
I feel uncomfortable with how that's drooping.
So this is, we're not supposed to use this for the Indigo2 because it's clearly labeled O2 Kit 9, so we're using it for the proper...
Yes, our sincere apologies. In the last video we had an egregious error and used the Frutella pack, which I think is a British Starburst knockoff. I'm not sure. Use the Frutella pack to support the graphics set from Indigo2 Extreme.
Somebody really angry with that. They were probably founded in like 1912 or something. The original Starburst.
So Frutella, you claim, was the original Starburst?
I'm not claiming anything.
It sounds like
I would never claim anything on YouTube.
You just claimed that.
So all of these parts would be supported by plastic sleds and trays and stuff in the case, but since we don't have the case, this is Ian's solution.
Yes. And it works well enough. So, and we can find a photo of the case or something online too. What is this thing?
That is the, I think it's labeled, it's
PCI tray.
Yeah.
Required for normal operation. If removed, it must be reinstalled before restart.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Is this anything connected to it?
Yes. This is, we put in right here.
Pretty easy to identify with the slot layout.
Yeah. And then we connect this. How do we do this?
Is this right here? That looks like it. These pins?
Yeah.
So some pins on the board and then those connect into there, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's connected. Yes.
Yeah. So at this point we're done because we don't have the optical drive or some of the other extras that would attach to this. And it is a pretty modular cableless system.
Right.
So this is a fully functional O2 as it is right now.
I'm scared. Okay, there's a more interesting shot for you of the motherboard in here. So you've got the higher component density in there. So specs for this system, R5000 is 200 megahertz CPU with 1 megabyte of L2 cache. You said 256 megabytes of RAM for this configuration. We think, based on what Ian said, who is again the expert who loaned or sent this out to us, we think this was like a $16,000 or $17,000.
He said 17.
17. Yeah. $17,000. We don't know if that's adjusted or anything or converted from pounds or USD or what. And you could increase this to 1 gigabyte capacity. Let's see, you say the BIOS equivalent has mouse control. And also true with the Indigo2. And then what is this AW Real demo you wrote about?
Yeah, I was just taking some notes of software demos that we can show off later when we get this turned on.
Okay.
But, yeah, there's some interesting stuff on there.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I guess we'll boot it up and take a look at the software then, and we'll spend more time there on this one because I think it's a bit more interesting too. So I walked away for a second and Patrick started installing AOL. We have we got it booted. It's working. This is, I guess it's a Windows 95 virtual machine. And we've got AOL in the background, so we're multitasking here. And oh, it's gone. And we have Solitaire. So I guess this is what you do with your $17,000 computer. You emulate Windows 95 and you play Solitaire. Other than this, though, other than the virtual machine, which is actually, of course, a very useful application, there's presumably other stuff on here.
Busy.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes. Ian told us that this, I think this is probably the largest thing that's installed. So
the Windows 95
yeah,
install.
We could delete it if we wanted to free up space, but I don't have a lot of...
I've heard that sound before.
I don't have a lot of SGI software that I really need to free up space for.
I think that sound is used in every grade A under A video ever made. So it's Andrew, we did it. We did RTX. Is that a toaster?
This is the SGI O2.
Sorry. Yes, this is actually a really impressive demo. We can barely. It's kind of small.
Reads an inventor file. Wonder if we have any other inventor files.
.iv. Looks like there's a few of them. Moose plastic.
Oh, this is the moose. That's why the front plane is labeled moose head.
Okay.
Mystery solved.
That makes sense. Toast.
Toast.
They call it a toaster. Oh no. It's really toast.
Oh, this one runs a lot better because there's no reflections on it.
Yeah, this is genuinely pretty impressive, like for the era.
Yeah.
So the reflection is a map of a photo, I think, right? It's just a photo from.
It's a bar someplace. They use it a lot in 3D testing.
Oh, really?
Stuff. It's like Blender's monkey head.
Okay. So this is a common one. How do you think the reflection is done? Just like map it onto it or something?
Yeah.
You don't think it's real-time ray tracing? So what do we have for like Blender? I think I've noticed from you previously, so you ran Blender version 2.44.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got Blender 2.44. I think there's a test file on here as well.
Yeah, this is just a standard test file that Ian had, and I think this was created with version 2.44 in mind,
Right.
which makes our comparisons very unfair.
Yes, they're very unfair anyway, but we used Blender 2.79 on, and we just had an 8600K set to 5 gigahertz that was on the test bench. So I moved the test file over there, and then you ran the benchmark. So it's not like for like Blender versions, but you really can't blame us when we're talking about hardware from the mid-90s. It's kind of hard to equalize things. So this, is it rendering now, I guess?
Yeah, can't you tell?
Sort of. So this render took, what was it, 82.3 minutes it took to complete.
Yeah, according to his benchmarks, with this spec, it should be taking less time than that.
Okay. Something's maybe set up wrong or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, either way, do we know what his benchmarks were?
I think his were more around like 45 minutes to an hour
That's quite
for
different.
our hardware.
Okay. Well, either way, if we take Ian's numbers, and we're not sure how these were exactly tested, I guess, 45 to an hour versus 82, either way, just to give you perspective on why that massive difference is not particularly relevant for comparing to an 8600K. The 8600K did it in about 9 seconds. So even if we're off by 50%, it is still a massive difference. But yeah, so somewhere in that range for the render on this. I guess it might depend on the software configuration too, to some extent, because I don't know how Blender in this version is, but current version you can change samples and things like that to speed it up.
Yeah.
And so Ian said, let's see, he said, really though, their systems were never about how fast one could process data, rather they were about how much one could process. And he says that's how John Massey phrased it to him, and said bandwidth, coping with big data sets, etc. They often did hold straight CPU speed records as well, though. So that's Blender. What else do we have on here? We have anything interesting? Quake or?
You don't want to wait for Blender to finish?
No,
It's kind of wild that, I mean, we just took this .blend file and put it in modern Blender, and it just opens up. The output looks different, but
how different does it look?
the lighting's smoother.
Okay.
The output image on this is kind of noisy.
Okay.
So
That is impressive, though, that you can just straight move the file.
yeah. Can I just?
Nice. And just to kind of be clear here, even though we're giving perspective on like the Blender rendering speeds modern versus then, this system was extremely impressive for its time. Because if you look at some of the graphics demos we have, getting overpowered here by the game. Some of the graphics demos we have from the Indigo2 as well, they're really pretty impressive. You can get some basic physics simulation, soft body physics simulation with cloth, stuff like that. So very impressive hardware and very high end, although it is having some trouble with Quake.
Yeah, if we had a better CPU in the system, I think it would handle it pretty well. But as it is, you can launch Quake. Also, it's worth mentioning that, I mean, Quake was never officially released on these systems.
So it's emulated?
Well, they're ports by fans. This is like SGI Quake or something like that is the name of the project.
Okay, so it's a fan port. All right.
Yeah, and the Doom version that's on the Indigo2 is also. And
no,
for context, this is on mouse movement right now, so I don't know the default Quake controls at all. Is it? Okay. All right, take a wild guess. What do you think? Oh.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for fire.
Control.
Is it? Okay, nice.
I know the Quake buttons.
Not holding up for this. Do I want to start a campaign? I feel like I don't want to start a campaign.
Well, let's get out of this level just to see if it's any faster somewhere else.
All right, I'm ready for normal skill, but I don't remember what my weapon switch is. Oh, it was faster for a second.
Yes. This is the 3rd episode. Primal fear in a strange dimension, ... You can tell that was written by the programmer.
And this is just as fun to play as it seems like. This is also a mechanical mouse.
By mechanical mouse, you mean a ball mouse?
The Corsair M63 MMRGB. The M is for mechanical.
Yeah. He didn't have to send us a ball mouse, but I guess
it is more authentic.
Most PS2 connector mice are ball mice.
Corsair made the MM600 mechanical ball mouse or whatever.
For April Fools?
Yeah.
The M63mm RGB mechanical ball mouse will be available later this month. We really think you're going to enjoy our exclusive big ball technology.
They've got me calling it a mechanical mouse because that's what they did in the April Fool's video.
Good job, Corsair. What else do we have on here?
Yeah, we're not getting anywhere with this. Wait, what? This is my favorite part where they credit the sound effects to Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails.
Really?
He did the soundtrack, but it's CD audio, so I don't actually know if the soundtrack will play.
Right. That's really cool, though. So there's our look at the O2. We're not sure if this one is performing at exactly where it should be. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. So we'll check with Ian on that. But yeah, it's for what we have seen, it's very impressive, especially the demo of the non-ray traced reflections enclosure for the case. And it's got Maya on there. We didn't have any demo files that we could find, I don't think. So we couldn't load up a demo for that. But we did have Blender, and we had some demos for Blender. And for, obviously, the hardware of the era, it is pretty impressive. But Quake, unfortunately, was not running at a frame rate that was really acceptable for play, even by our standards. So that's it for this one. Thank you for watching, as always. If there's interest in doing more of this type of content, let us know, because we can revisit these with some extra depth or something if enough people are interested. Maybe if you want to send us an email and say if you have any particular suggestions for other software. But that's it for this one. Subscribe for more. As always, you can go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out directly. Thank you for watching, and thank you to SGI Depot for assisting with this. We'll see you all next time.